You're on.
Yes, we're standing on Lamed Zayin Amid Beis. We're a full day behind. The question was over here when we said that if there was a hole in the ear the size of a kashina, which we translate as a horse beam, so that would be a blemish. A blemish enough that you can sacrifice the bechor back at home and eat it. So Rav Huna was asked the question. Rav Oishi asked Rav Huna the Great, does the hole need to be the size of a kashina, that if the kashina can go in and out through the hole easily, or that it can go in and it gets stuck, which is a difference.
Randy, please put your phone on mute.
Amar Lai said to him, so Rav Huna responds back, Zulei Shemati, but Ketzeba Shemati. I don't know the answer to your question. However, I know the answer to another question, to something similar to this I've heard. Ditanan, this is where we got to yesterday. It was taught in a Mishnah.
How many lines from the bottom of it?
It's got to be about 10 lines from the bottom. Hashidra, Ragol Gailas, the spine and the skull, Shechasru. But the rule is that a corpse inside a house makes everything in the house tummy. But the other things, even if it's not a full corpse, that if you touch it, you'll become tummy. What about if you have the majority of the corpse in the house? So that will also make everything in the house tummy. So the skull and the spine are two things that if they're in the house, they'll also make everything in the house tummy. But the only thing is they need to be intact. Let's say they're chasru. If they're missing, then the house doesn't become tummy. How much missing would be considered missing that the house won't be tummy? So it's machlokes. Beis Shammai, who's more strict, says that it needs to be missing a lot for it not to be tummy. In other words, it will naturally give off tumah to everything in the house. Beis Shammai shtei chulyos, two vertebrae of the spine. Beis Hillel is more lenient. They say even one vertebrae, it's already tar. The house is tar. But Golgoilas, what about in the skull? How much missing?
Tahar or tummy?
Tahar. The house is tar because you don't have a full spine here.
So you're saying if
there's missing one piece of the spine, then it's already missing and the house is tar.
I never knew that. But I thought it was any part of the body.
If you touch any part. Now we're talking about tumas oil.
Tumas oil, right, okay.
So the Golgoilas, what about the skull? Beshamim kamalai mekdeach. The size of a drill, we translated yesterday, or an awl, or some sort of hammer, something that pierces through. Beis Hillel says the amount that would be removed from a living animal, a skull, and the animal would die, that's the amount that would make the house tar. Now, Beis Shammai would actually agree to that. The only thing is, Beis Shammai says that amount is shtei chulyos. Is a malay makdeach, is the amount of the oil that they discussed. So what we're left with here is a undefined amount according to Beis Hillel. So B'Yosef Rav Chizda v'kami boyulei. Rav Chizda was sitting and he asked the question, Kedei shinatel menachai v'yamos v'kama. How much is that? What is Beis Hillel referring to? And it says the amount of the skull that would remove, the animal would die. That's the amount that, at that point, it's going to be tahar. We're looking for a smaller amount than Beis Shammai's amount because we want Beis Hillel to be more lenient. That means there's less tumah, more. It's easier for the tumah to disappear by having even a small hole. There's already no tumah. Amali Rav Tachlifa bar Avadumi, Hachi Amar Shmuel Kesela. Rav Tachlifa bar Avadumi says that Shmuel says it's the size of a sela. V'itmar Rav Safra. Rav Safra says, V'itmar was stated, Rav Safra Amar Shmaitza Amar Lei. What did Rav Tachlifa bar Rav Dumi say in the name of Shmuel? Was it Shmuel's own opinion? That's what Rav Safra says. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Masnisa Amar Lei. Shmuel bar Yehuda says that Shmuel said a brisa, that it was a sela. V'simanach Tani Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. If you want to remember who said that it's Shmuel's own opinion, who says Shmuel was quoting, so we have other Gemaras where it says Tani Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, that Shmuel bar Yehuda taught and Tani is taught from a brisa. So that's telling me that Shmuel Bar Yehuda is the one that says that Shmuel taught the brisa. It's just a mnemonic to remember which one said which. Rav Safra versus Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Whatever the case is, we know that Rav Chizda now knows from Rav Tachlifa that Beis Hillel's opinion is that once it's the size of a sela, then the house is tahor, if it's missing the size of a sela. The problem is that Rav Chizda then tells Rav Tachlifa bar Rav Dumi that you created a problem. It happens to be that we know that a sela, which is a coin, and a mekdeach, which is this drill or an awl, is the same size. So Beis Shammai says, what's the amount that's missing from the skull, and the house would be pure the size of the awl, or the drill. Beis Hillel says, what's the size that the house would be tar? The size of a sela. They didn't actually say that. They said the amount that would be missing that the animal would die. And we said, what is that? That's a sela. And we have another Mishnah that says that an awl and a sela is the same size, so which means that there's a problem here because there's no machlekes, and they're arguing.
There's no machlekes and they're arguing.
We know that they're arguing, and we know that they're saying two different terms, and it's really the same size. Ditanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah. See, this Mishnah is referring to if you have a townhouse where you have a corpse in one house, and there's a hole that goes from or a window that goes from one to the other. So does the tumah spread through to the other part? So ma'ar is a window that's used for light. Shlei nasibi deyadam, that it's there not because of a man made it, but just because the wall crumbled, and so there's a hole there.
What does ma'ar mean?
Ma'ar is a window, but it's made for light. It's a window that's usually just for light. So shiurim malay egrif gadol, that normally a window needs to be a window that's used, that has usage, which means to be it needs to be a tefach by a tefach. That's normally what's considered an opening. But here, if it's not made intentionally, it just was made because the wall crumbled. So it needs to be Mloy Egrif Gadol, the size of a big fist. Ben Avatiach or Ben Batiach. This is the fist of Ben Batiach. Ben Batiach, I don't know if we had it before or we had it somewhere. It could be that Ben Batiach is the nephew of Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, who was the head of the Sukrika, the rebels and by the time of the destruction that wanted to fight the Romans. They were the zealots, they were called. They wanted to fight the Romans, and their leader was Ben Sikra was his name. I think Sikra was a dagger. They had these sharp daggers. Anyway, but it must have been a strong fellow, and he was called Ben Batiach as well. So he had a very big fist. Rab Yosef Yeshnik Reish Gadol Shel Adam, and it could be that this is also the size of a big head of a man. That's the size of this window that the tumah will spread through. Nasibi the other, but let's say it wasn't because the wall crumbled, it was made intentionally by a person. Then shira kumlei mekadeach gadol shalishka. Then the measurement is, and get ready for this is the size of the big drill or the big awl of the temple. Shuka pundian sheli talki, which is the pundian, an Italian pundian, which is an Italian coin. Ukasela Nirinus. And it's like the Nero Sella. Nero was the Roman emperor, and he had a Sella that was minted, and it's that size as well. So we're giving a bunch of measurements in case people don't know what the size of this is. They'll know maybe the size of that. The Yeshnei Kumalei Nekev Shalal, and this is also the size of the yoke. There's a hole that when they attach the yoke to for a plow, so when they attach the yoke on, there's a hole that they have to put a peg into to hold it on. It's the size of that hole as well, and this is the size of this window. Our problem is that this sounds like this is also the size of the hole in the skull that would make the house tahar, because if it's missing such a large amount, so it's not considered that it's a significant part of the corpse, and the house will be tar. So what did we say over here? It's the size of a mekadeach. We said it's the size of a sela. Beis Shammai's opinion was that the hole needed to be the size of a mekadeach. Beis Hillel's opinion, according to Shmuel, says it needs to be the size of a cellar. Here we say mekadeach and cellar is the same thing.
So they're not arguing.
So Rav Tachlif is quiet. They're not arguing, but it doesn't make sense. They have to be arguing. So ishtik. Rav Tachlif is quiet. V'amalei, so Rav Chisda responds. He tries to answer the question. Maybe if we go back and we look at Beis Shammai really meant that the size of the awl is the size of the awl if you rub it around and you'll make it larger. If you take the awl and you go, you can widen it. You have to do this sometimes when you're putting a screw in the sheetrock. You have to put this plastic piece in. What's it called? An anchor. So I can never get the hole big enough to get the anchor, and I always end up squishing the anchor whenever I do that. So what you do is you have to drill, and then you just widen it with the piece. You have to make it wider. It should fit in smoothly. But anyway, that's mekadeach v'chisuma, is that you have to widen it by moving it around to make it larger. Oh, if that's the case, then Beis Shammai has a wider amount, more missing than Beis Hillel. Very good. According to Beis Shammai, if there's only missing the size of Beis Hillel, then it's going to still be tamei. Beis Shammai is more strict. Beis Hillel says even less. It's going to be tamei. But Amalei Rav Tachlifa, so Rav Tachlifa responds to Rav Chisda's teretz. You see, Rav Chisda asked the question, Rav Tachlifa. Rav Tachlifa is quiet. Rav Chisda answers his own question. Rav Tachlifa is happy. He says, It's not only is this a possible answer, but this is actually the answer. So, what's this, Gimel? And you have to rely on this, like what we did with Chizkiah Abi Ikish, who also had a similar issue. He had a statement that wasn't so clear, and we've resolved it, and we've accepted it that's the pshat. So to over here, accept that this is the pshat. The Tanan, and now we get into something that's really not so relevant for us, but apparently when the Gemara brings, you see, there's no Gemara on Taras, on all the laws of impurity. We're missing all of it except for Nida. We don't have Gemara on Kalim and Alais. There's no Gemara there. It's just Mishnayos. So the Rishonim learn it, and the Rishonim recreate the Gemara by comparing Brises and Mishnayos. It's very difficult to learn.
Recreate, but it was never recreated to begin with, because there was never a Gemara.
They understand what it means based on comparing in other words, what a Gemara would do to figure out what the Mishnah means. Okay. The Rishonim have to do that. But the problem is they're missing about 1,000 years of scholarship. So we have it. We have the Mishnah with the Gemara directly there, and the Rishonim discuss the Gemara, and so it's all in order and it fits and matches. There's a huge gap. So it could be that when the Gemara, other Gemaras quote Mishnayos from Taharas, they use this opportunity to elaborate on it. So at least we have some understanding of these things. Like we just did over here was the Ma'ar. That was a Mishnah in Kalim, I believe, but it's also a quote. It's also in Alais. Where's the Dalit? It's Mishnah in Kalim. Okay, now we have the Tanan. Actually, this isn't a Tanan. It's supposed to be a Titania. Was taught in a Brisa. Zu Eidas Hayed Chizkiah Abi Ikish Lefnei Rabbi Gamliel B'Yavna. Mishum Rabbi Sha'amar Mishum Rabbi Gamliel Azakin. So over here we have Rabbi Gamliel of Yavna. That's this Rabbi Gamliel. You see over there it says Yavna. And Chizkiah Abi Ikish is testifying in front of him something that his grandfather said, Rabbi Gamliel Azakin.
Say that one more time?
Yeah.
So from Yavna.
In front of Rabbi Gamliel of Yavna is a fellow that's testifying what Rabbi Gamliel's grandfather had said, Rabbi Gamliel Azakin, Rabbi Gamliel the elder. And he's telling it to the grandson, to Rabbi Gamliel. He's saying like this, Shama Misham Rabbi Gamliel Azakin. Kol she'en le'toich b'kli cheres, ein le'acharayim lachalika. Nit mataychai, nit magabay, nit mataychai. Okay. See, it's a little confusing because it has to be adjusted over here because it doesn't really doesn't make sense the way it's said. What's happening is normally an earthenware vessel is only tamei if something tamei goes into its airspace. If you touch the back of the earthenware vessel with tumah, it doesn't become tamei. Now, what we're saying is that there is such a thing where you touch the inside of the vessel and the whole vessel becomes tamei, even the outside. If you touch the outside of the vessel, then the outside becomes tamei, but not the inside. So there's a difference between touching the inside or touching the outside. So the statement over here goes like this, that if I have a vessel that doesn't have an inside or an outside, it just has a top and a bottom. It's flat. There's no receptacle. There's no inside. So it says like this. If it's an earthenware vessel, so there's no difference between the back and the front. If you touch one side, the other side is tamei. That's what it's saying. The Gemara immediately asks, an earthenware vessel that doesn't have an inside, if you touch one side, the other side is tamei, doesn't make sense. Kli cheres b'toichei taler rachmana. A kli cheres, an earthenware vessel, is only tamei if it touches the inside. And here there's no inside. Islei toichet milei, leslei toich layet milei. Doesn't make sense. There's no inside, there's no tumah. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ravin hachi kamar. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ravin explains it differently. He says, Kol shein leitoich b'kli cheres, anything that wouldn't have been an earthenware vessel. So, kenegdoi b'kli shetef, corresponding to it, if it's now not an earthenware vessel, and it doesn't have an inside, what type of vessel? We're talking about a wooden vessel, let's say. Rashi emphasis that it's wooden and not metal. So, the wooden vessel. So, ein layacharayim lachalika, a wooden vessel that doesn't have an inside, so there's no difference between if you touch the top or you touch the bottom. They both become tamei. Nit matoichei, nit magabe, nit matoichei. There's no difference between the inside and the outside.
Why are they comparing a wooden vessel to kli cheres?
You're going to ask that in a second. The Gemara asks, Lama le'lemitli b'kli cheres. So what do you need the earthenware vessel here? Name a kol she'en le'toich b'kli shetev, ein le'acharayim lachalika. Why are you using this term in there when it doesn't make any difference to us? The earthenware vessel has nothing to do with this. Just say, any kli shetef. Shetef means washable. Washable means that I can put it in a mikveh, because an earthenware vessel can't be put in a mikveh. It has to be broken if it's tamei. So kli shetef is talking about either metal or wood. Rashi says specifically we're talking about wood here. So just say a wooden vessel that doesn't have an inside, whichever side you touch becomes tamei for both of them. So the Gemara says, Hakamashmal, it's coming to teach me something. The yesh leitoich hareo kechli cheres. If it does have an inside, if it is a receptacle, then it does have the status of an earthenware vessel, which is the following. Makli cheres nit matoichei nit magabe. Just like by an earthenware vessel, if something goes into the airspace, in the inside, in the receptacle, the back also becomes tamei. Lo nit matoichei, lo nit magabe. But if it doesn't go into the airspace, then the back doesn't become tamei just by touching the back. Af kli shetef, also by a washable vessel or wooden vessel, nit matoicha, nit magabe. If the inside becomes tamei, the outside becomes tamei. Lo nit matoicha, lo nit magabe. But if the inside doesn't become tamei, then the outside doesn't become tamei. The Gemara asks on this. 1 second. An earthenware vessel, I understand that the inside makes the whole thing tamei. But you're comparing this to a wooden vessel. And you're saying that law applies to a wooden vessel as well? That only if the inside becomes tamei, the outside becomes tamei? Bishlem kli cheres. It's understandable, it works out well, it's appropriate by a kli cheres, gali be'rachmana toichai. The Eibishter revealed to us, it says in the Torah that the inside is what makes it tamei. El kli shetef mi gali be'rachmana toichai. By a washable vessel, does it say that the inside makes it tamei? It has nothing to do with inside. The Gemara says, if we're dealing with a biblical tumah, then you're correct. There is no difference, the inside or the outside, by a kli shetef, by a wooden vessel. That difference is only by earthenware. Here we're dealing with a rabbinic decree. A rabbinic decree is that liquid can make a vessel tamei. Normally, vessels make food and liquid tamei, because a vessel could be an avatama and it could be a rishon latama. But a vessel could be an avatama. Food and liquid could be a rishon latama. But a vessel doesn't become tameh from food and liquid. A vessel is an earlier stage of tameh. The vessel makes the food tameh. Here we're going to say that liquid can make a vessel tameh, and that's all rabbinic. Why? The Tanan, it was taught in a Mishnah. Keli shenitma achayrav b'mashkin. If a vessel becomes tameh on the back because of liquid, achayrav tamein. Only the back of the vessel is tameh. The back of the vessel means the outside of the vessel is tameh. Taichai agnai aznai v'yadav tahirin. But the inside, the ears, the handles, other handles are all tahir. Notice only the back of the vessel is tameh. Nitma taichai. But if the inside of the vessel becomes tameh, kulei tameh, then everything becomes tameh. And the Gemara explains. Midday Raisa, because according to the biblical law, ein eichel matame keli. Food cannot make a keli tameh. Ve'in mashke matame keli, and liquid can't make a keli, a vessel tameh. But Rabbanan hu the Gazer, the rabbis made a decree, mishum mashke zav v'zava. They made a decree because there is such a type of tameh, which is the liquids that come out of someone that's tameh. He has, I think, gonorrhea is the translation. He's a zav or a zava. There's a woman that sees blood at not the right times, not at her period, so she has this other sort of tumah. So the liquids that come out of such a person, the fluids that come out of a person, make a vessel tameh. It's a very strong tumah. So they'll make a vessel tameh. So because of that, any liquid, they made a decree. That's midaraisa. Because of that, they made a decree on other liquids that they'll also make vessels tameh, just so not to confuse liquids. So hilkach, this is all rabbinic, because it's just other liquids, has nothing to do with the zav and the zava, but it's a rabbinic decree not to confuse it. Hilkach shavir rabbanan ketuma de klicheres. So when the rabbis enacted this decree, that liquids can make a vessel tameh, they said they can make a vessel tameh like a klicheres vessel, which is taichai. The inside makes it tameh, but the outside doesn't become tameh. The outside won't make the inside tameh. And they didn't make it like its own tumah. They made it only like a tumah of a kli cheres. Now the question is, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they make it like its own tumah? Just extend the tumah of every vessel to liquids that it will make a tameh because of the liquids of a zav, the fluids of a zav. And the answer is, of the rabbanan hakeira ki hechid le'lisser v'la tumah v'kacha. The rabbis didn't want to make it as a perfect tumah, exactly appropriate, because they wanted to make a distinction here. That, let's say, truma or kudshim touch this sort of vessel. So it would make the truma now tameh, because this vessel became tameh through liquids, which is all rabbinic. Now, you would then go ahead and say, okay, now my truma's tameh, I'm going to go burn the truma. Truth is, you can't burn the truma because it's only rabbinically tameh. So, but you would be confused between what's rabbinic and what's biblical because you just say it's tameh. So in order to make sure that we can differentiate between what's a rabbinic tumah and what's a biblical tumah, they didn't put on the decree perfectly to match that vessel. They made a decree that it only matches a klicheres vessel, even if it's a wooden vessel. So Gemara says, if that's the case, if it doesn't have an inside, which that's what we're referring to, liyavanami akera. Here's what we're saying over here, and this is what the statement of Chizkiah Ikish, this testimony was, that if the vessel has a receptacle, then if the liquids go inside, then the whole vessel is tameh. If it goes outside, then only the outside is tameh. But if there is no receptacle, then if it touches the outside, the inside's tameh. If it touches the inside, the outside's tameh also, that there is no differentiation. The problem is, if there's no differentiation between the inside and the outside, then we're back on the biblical law. We don't see the difference now. The Gemara explains that kivan davdu eker b'yesh leitoich, since if it would be a vessel that would have an inside,
we differentiated. So made the yediyah dein leiteich derabanan. That tells us that if it doesn't have an inside, it's also only rabbinic. Because I would know the law. I don't need to make the difference in every scenario. I made the difference in one scenario, and automatically I'll know that in all cases this type of tumah of fluids that touch a vessel is only rabbinic. Now the Gemara asks a question, and this question is what proved to Rashi before that we're dealing with a wooden vessel and not a metal vessel, because both wooden and metal are both under the category of klishetev, washable vessels. You can put them in the mikveh and they become pure. The Gemara asks like this: Ve'in leiteich beklishetev de'raisa bar kibuli tumahu. A wooden vessel that doesn't have a receptacle, is that able to become tamei? Just a plank doesn't become tamei. Tumiyah de sak be'inan. It says it needs to be similar to a sack. Mas sack metaltal moliverekan, just like a sack could be carried if it's full or empty. Afkom metaltal moliverekan. Also, any wood needs to be able to be carried full or empty, which means it needs to be a receptacle. So the Gemara answers, Banach the Chazal and Midrasis. There's another type of tumah here, and which doesn't need a receptacle, and that is something that you can sit on. A bench. So if you can sit on it, if it's like a chair or a bench, then it could get the tumah of a zav, which is called medras, tumas medras, that he sits on it. Ihachi, if that's the case, that we're dealing with tumas medras, so why do we have to say that we're not dealing with an earthenware vessel? Why? Because an earthenware vessel needs to have a receptacle. So we said, okay, because we're talking about something that doesn't have a receptacle, it can't be an earthenware vessel. It needs to be cleates. It needs to be wood. It needs to be wood. And now we ask, but wood also needs to be a receptacle, or else it's pshute cleates. Pshute cleates isn't tamei. It's not mekabel. We said, no, I know it's pshute cleates. It doesn't have a receptacle, but it's tamei because it's a chair. It could be used as a chair. If it could be used as a chair, then it doesn't need a receptacle, then what about earthenware? You can have an earthenware chair. The Gemara explains that ein medras b'kli cheres. There's no chair that's earthenware because it will crack if you sit on it.
Just to clarify, a bench is a flat thing, right? It fits, right? Because you're discussing.
Right.
Like a bench, not a chair.
See, the discussion about pshute kliyates has to do with like tabletops or that things that you would remove off the table and it would just be a board of wood. So then it's possible that it can't become tamei because it's just a board. Only if once it's turned into a vessel, that's considered a. That's a discussion regarding the table in the temple. If it had a lip, if the lip was on top, then it's considered a receptacle. If the lip was on bottom, it's machlekes where it was. So then it won't be considered a vessel, that tabletop. Okay, so what we did here in this Gemara was we had a problem with a statement that Rav Tachlifa Bar Avdumi made. Now let me go back. We had a question from Rav Hoshi asked Rav Huna, what's the size of the hole in the ear that would make the animal a mum, that would be a mum in the animal that you can take the animal home to shecht it, because it was a firstborn animal, it needs to be brought as a sacrifice, but it has a hole in the ear. The hole in the ear is the size of a karshina, which is a horse bean.
A what?
A horse bean, I don't know what it is. Some sort of little piece of grain that animals eat. So, how big does that hole need to be? Does it need that this karshina can go through easily, or does it mean that it goes in and gets stuck? So Rav Huna says, I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you the answer to another question. And he quotes this discussion about how big is the hole of the skull that the house doesn't become tamei. And we're discussing Beis Hillel's opinion, in which Shmuel says it was the size of a sela. So we said, really, is it the size of a sela? The size of a sela is going to be the same as Beis Shammai that says it's the size of an awl. So to answer that, we said that Beis Shammai's opinion was that it was the larger, that the awl was enlarging the hole, that you moved it around to make the hole larger. So Rav Tachlifa said, yes, that's exactly the pshat, that the hole is larger. Then we said, and you should accept it to the extent that the way we accept it, the way we've resolved the answer of Chizkiah V'Yikish, because Chizkiah V'Yikish also made a statement, which the statement had a big problem with it, because he said that's something that's a receptacle by Kli Cheres. In order to resolve it, we said that he's not talking about a Kli Cheres, we're talking about corresponding to a Kli Cheres by a wooden vessel. And that's how we resolved it. So you see that we resolved it in such a way that that became the accepted answer, and so too this should be the accepted answer for Beis Shammai. Now Rav Papa is now going to answer back to our problem that it sounds like Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai have the same measurement. Rav Papa says, Mekadeach Gadol Shanino, that what is the same size as the coin? That's Mekadeach Gadol, a big awl. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a regular awl. A regular awl, L'meimar, this tells me, Michlal, this implies, the Mekadeach Stam, that a regular awl, Zutra, Zutra means smaller, to take out the nami. Zutra Mikasela. A regular awl is smaller than a coin. So Shammai says that